Have you just started playing Don't Starve Together and find it difficult to survive even a couple days? Well, don't worry, cause in today's video I'm going to show you 15 useful beginner tips that are going to help you become better at the game. Don't Starve Together is a very difficult game right from the start, so it's important to start off the right way, which means that you should start off the game by playing Wilson. You might be surprised, but so many new players fall into the trap of choosing a different character, and that's simply because they're more interesting than Wilson. However, playing as Wilson is very beneficial when learning the game. That's because he doesn't have any upsides nor downsides, which allows you to focus simply on the gameplay. I've seen many beginners choose characters like Wendy or Wolfgang even though they haven't mastered the basics of the game. So trust me, playing a basic character is going to help you learn the mechanics of the game much faster. In addition to that, it's also going to help you improve faster when you go for a specific character. Now that you're ready to play the game, it is very important to learn all the controls and inputs. These range from the very obvious ones like moving by pressing WASD, rotating your camera by pressing Q and E, picking up objects by pressing the spacebar, attacking a hostile creature by holding F, or forcing an attack on a passive creature by holding Ctrl F. There are also useful inputs in combination with the mouse, like for example holding Shift and clicking an item in your inventory to quickly transfer it between inventories, or holding Shift and right-clicking to instantly drop an item on the ground. There are also many useful shortcuts like C for crafting, M for map, P for pause, and I to open the skill set menu. Now let's get to actual gameplay. During the first days of your playthrough, exploration is definitely one of the most important things that you have to do. I often see a ton of new players only exploring the area around the spawn and instantly settling down. Not only does this make you miss out on a ton of important resources, but it can also make you miss out on a potential good spot for a base. So before settling down, make sure to spend a couple of days by exploring the map. This will help you find many important things that you'll need throughout your playthrough, like for example paths, useful areas like a graveyard or a pig village, a pig king, and most importantly areas where you're going to find key resources like wood, stone, grass, twigs, and of course food. Knowing where things are is obviously going to help you when choosing a place to build a base later on in the playthrough. Which brings us to the next tip, learning the different biomes and their general use. So here's a quick overview of all the biomes and what you can find inside of them. First we have the spawn biome where you can find most of the basic resources. Then we have a savanna biome where you'll mostly find grass, followed by a mosaic biome where you can find rocks, trees, and a graveyard. Then we have the two deserts, with the first one being the Oasis Desert, which can be easily identified by, well, the oasis and the regular looking cacti, with the second desert being the Dragonfly Desert, easily recognizable by the round cacti, tumbleweeds, and the actual dragonfly. We then have the very hostile marsh biome where you can find reeds, tentacles, and worms. You will also find a deciduous forest with the pig king, as well as the Mactusk forest and the Mandrake forest. The last one being the Bee Queen biome, which is beautiful yet hostile. These are all followed up by 5 of the random biomes, being the second deciduous forest, the Killer Bee Plains, the Pure Rocky Land, the Spider Rocky Land, the Mactusk Plains, the Pig Village Forest, the Moose Goose Breeding Plains, the Meteor Field, the Pond Grasslands, and the Grasslands. Exploring and recognizing all these biomes will help you become a better player, while making sure you find the optimal spot for a base. Tip number 5 has to do with the name of the game, Don't Starve, which obviously has to do with food, so it is important to learn how to manipulate with the food you find. A general rule is to always cook meat. This will make it so it spoils a lot slower. However, on the other hand, you don't want to do this when it comes to fruits and vegetables, as it is going to make them spoil a lot quicker. Additionally, it is also nice to learn some recipes when you build a base and a crock pot. Powerful recipes like for example the meatball, the meaty stew, pierogi, or the trail mix will all help you survive a lot longer. These only require a couple of basic ingredients. They will keep your health up and stomach full. Now you might be wondering, how do I keep my sanity up? All these pesky nightmare creatures keep following me and killing me. Is there an effective way to prevent being insane? Of course there is. Which brings us to the 6th tip. You can easily regain sanity by picking up flowers, prototyping new items in the crafting tabs, or using sanity food like for example cooked cactus flesh or cooked green caps. You can also regain sanity by wearing clothing items with a positive sanity effect, like for example the top hat. On to the 7th tip, which is to learn to fight basic enemies. Now, I understand Don't Starve Together's combat system can be pretty tricky for beginners. However, there unfortunately isn't a way around this, other than learning to fight. So here's a quick overview on how to fight most basic enemies that you will encounter in your first playthrough. Spiders are stun-lockable, meaning that as long as you attack them, they cannot fight back. The stronger warrior spider, on the other hand, is not. Plus, they have a jumping attack. Your best bet is to avoid them, catch them into traps, or fight them by dodging their jumping attack. This can be done by running in a circular motion. Next, we have the hounds. These can be easily killed by following a simple kiting pattern, dodging an attack, hitting twice, and repeat. If you don't want to fight them, you can simply outrun them. After they start barking, they will re-aggro onto the closest mob. But this can also be used as a way to kill them, by having the hound aggro onto a stronger mob that will kill him. Like for example beefaloes, bees, and tall birds. Speaking of bees, these are also stun-lockable. However, if there's a larger number of them, you want to utilize the strategy of hitting and running away until they all die. The same applies to killer bees. It is also important to learn how to fight shadow creatures, in case you go insane. Crawling horrors and terrorbeaks can be easily kited. Simply just dodge and hit. Repeat this until they die. Onto the more tricky monsters like clockworks. The clockwork rook is easily downed by bringing him away from his spawn, after which you can simply deal damage to him without him charging into you. The clockwork knight can be easily kited with a pattern of dodging, hitting twice, and dodging again after beginning the third hit. This is called cancelling an attack. This is done to keep the kiting pattern more consistent, because if you dodge right after the second attack, the knight might start jumping around. The last type of clockwork is the clockwork bishop. These are only kitable with a very big speed buff, so I would recommend avoiding them or simply tanking them if you really need the gears. A pro tip: if there's more than one bishop, you can simply set one on fire by hitting him with a torch. This will make him jump around and not attack you while you focus on the other one. The following mobs are a good segue to the 8th tip, which is to not pick unnecessary fights. I often see beginners get into fights that are completely unnecessary, which can easily result in an early death, so I would highly recommend avoiding merms, tentacles, marauders, huge packs of hounds, and especially big groups of spiders. There is no shame in avoiding or abandoning a fight if you feel like it's too risky. Continuing with the next step, which is pre-crafting. After exploring for a while, your inventory is eventually going to become full. If some of these resources are for example for a science machine, an alchemy engine, or a different structure, you can simply craft it and right click to not place it. This will make it pre-crafted and visible in your crafting menu, meaning you can place it down whenever you want to. Speaking of crafting, it is also nice to prototype items. Throughout your playthrough you will need stuff like rope, boards, cutstone, and many more resources. Crafting them once will basically make you learn the recipe, meaning you can craft them anytime without needing the crafting station for them. Let's get to the next tip, using wormholes for faster exploration. In Don't Starve Together, time is everything. Being fast and effective will leave you with more room for error. Using a wormhole will eat away 15 sanity. However, this can be easily negated by the previous tips about sanity. It is also very beneficial to know which wormholes lead to where, because you can easily build a base with a bunch of wormholes nearby, meaning whenever you want to travel large distances you can simply use those wormholes. Let's talk more about building a base. After exploring for a couple days and picking up resources, you should have a rough idea of where you want to build your base. Where to build a base is something that every player has to decide for themselves. Instead of showing places where to build a base, I'm going to show some places where you definitely want to avoid building a base. These are for example the Dragonfly Desert, in which your base could burn down because of a tumbleweed that caught on fire on one of the magma pools. Meteor fields, for obvious reasons. Ponds with frogs, moose goose spawns, cave entrances, and one of the biggest traps, beefaloes. These are neutral, but when they have their young, they become very aggressive. Heading on to the last 3 tips of the video, we have using a hammer. The hammer is a tool that you can craft even without a science machine, and it will allow you to get some really good resources. Smashing pig heads will give you pigskin and twigs. Smashing pig huts will give you pigskin, boards, and cutstone. Smashing merm heads will also give you sticks and fish. And smashing structures like chests will give you some of the resources. This can speed up the process of getting resources for your base, and it will also help you save a lot of time in the long run. Speaking of saving time, the complete opposite is wasting time, which is exactly what I see beginners doing trying to prepare for winter. I understand that winter can be very difficult for a beginner. However, it only requires you a couple of resources to get ready, so I wouldn't recommend going out of your way and spending multiple days on getting a single piece of clothing for winter. All you really need to survive the cold is a thermal stone, which can be easily crafted from a couple basic resources, and a torch. Using a torch you can simply light anything in fire, like a tree, drop your thermal stone right onto the fire, and have it warm up to the absolute max. This will keep your temperature up for a long time, and all you have to do when you get cold is to set something else on fire. As long as you have a torch, you have a heat source. And that brings us on to the last tip, which is to simply play the game. Trial and error is always the best method on how to learn, so as long as you enjoy the game and keep playing it, you will become better. It doesn't matter if you die on day 5, 10 or 20, each and every mistake will give you experience which you can use in the next run. The feeling of mastering the core mechanics of the game and enjoying the game as it is very fun. In addition to that, you should also focus on the together part of the game, as playing with friends and laughing about a stupid death is always gonna make this game much more memorable for you. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys found at least some of the tips helpful. If that's the case, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. So try not to starve, and see you in the next one. Bye.